Hello everyone, welcome to the Best Little Gamers channel. In this video, I want to introduce you to the hardest games in the history of Naughty Dog Studio. So stay with us until the end of this video to discover them together. If we were to compile a list of the most influential and game-changing game studios of the past decade, there's no doubt that Naughty Dog would be among them, securing a significant position on this list. Undoubtedly, it earns a prominent place due to various reasons. Perhaps the most important reason is that Naughty Dog is one of the few studios whose works have found their way into the realms of Hollywood and mainstream, thanks to the creation of the popular and well-crafted game The Last of Us. The game number 7, Uncharted 3. Drake's Deception. Uncharted 3, perhaps in terms of difficulty, may be the easiest game from Naughty Dog Studio, but it can't be denied that this game is considered one of the studio's most important games. Released on November 1, 2011, by Naughty Dog Studio, in the action-adventure genre for the PS3 platform. However, this game later became available to PlayStation 4 users as well. Although the previous installment of this franchise, Uncharted 2, focused more on exploration and parkour, the third installment had a special difference from the second part. In the third installment, the main focus of the game was more on its action elements, making it more like a third-person action title. In this game, the platforming elements were significantly reduced compared to the past. Whereas in the second part, a large part of the game's challenge was due to these platforming and parkour elements. However, in the third part, these elements were less prominent, with more focus on action elements. But the action elements were not particularly challenging, especially since from the beginning of the game, the developers give you a sense of security by making melee combat easier and giving you plenty of ammunition. However, this feeling is something that the game gives you at the beginning, and the further you progress in the gameplay, the harder the game becomes. Most of the game's difficulty is due to the highly advanced artificial intelligence of the enemies within the game. The advanced AI of the enemies, along with their increased numbers, makes the combat system a bit more difficult for you. One of the most challenging parts of the game is when you are in the process of changing covers. At this time, you feel that the enemies are rushing towards you at a faster pace. But the next game, in terms of difficulty, is even more challenging than the third part of Uncharted. The game number 6, Jak X. Combat Racing. Jak and Daxter is one of Naughty Dog's franchises that you may not have heard of until today, but this franchise was one of Naughty Dog's attempts to enter the mainstream gaming world. Jak X. Combat Racing was a racing title in this franchise that was released on October 18, 2005, in the action and racing genre by Naughty Dog Studio for the PS2 platform and later for the PS4. Naughty Dog, by creating this game, truly stepped out of its comfort zone. Jak X. Combat Racing quickly gained popularity, but for not so positive reasons. The difficulty of this game caught the attention of many, and if you couldn't master the controls of this game well, you would definitely have trouble in the experience. The most important part of the control system in this game is drifting, which is very difficult to perform correctly in the game. Drifting is crucial because it allows you to boost yourself, increasing your speed momentarily, and you could use this opportunity to get ahead of your competitors. So drifting was a system you had to be good at in this game. Another reason why this game is very difficult is its unpredictability. Due to the presence of all the weapons and explosives in the game, you always had to be prepared for one of your competitors to use these weapons against you, and just when you were in first place, you quickly lose your position. The game's physics is such that driving in the game becomes a bit harder. because your car always brings a slight jump to the gameplay, which you can definitely feel the difficulty of throughout the gameplay experience.
Get over.
The game number 5, Crash Bandicoot 2. Cortex Strikes Back. You may not know this, but Crash, or Crash Bandicoot, is a franchise created by Naughty Dog during its collaboration with Activision. This game was created for the PC console in the platformer genre in 1997. However, Naughty Dog managed to showcase elements of its creativity in placing adventure elements in its games. The second part of Crash holds great significance for fans of this series because Naughty Dog made every effort to keep this game committed to the platformer style, and it must be admitted that they did an extraordinary job in this regard. However, being committed to the platformer style made Naughty Dog challenge these elements a bit more than necessary. The vastness of the platformer system in the game led Naughty Dog to unleash creativity to the fullest and introduce us to new systems that until that time, and even after all these years, we haven't seen in platformer video games. Many modern platformer games have taken significant inspiration from this game. Another crucial aspect of this game that adds a lot of difficulty and challenge to Crash 2 is that the checkpoints are very unforgiving. In the first and third parts, the checkpoints are close to each other, and you don't get too annoyed by dying in the game. But if you die in Crash 2, you go back miles. This game was the first time the slide jump was added to the world of Crash. This element works in the platforming system in a way that Crash has to perform a single slide at first and then, just at the end of the slide, perform a high jump, and your jumps in this state will be higher than normal. The game repeatedly forces you to use this system, and flawlessly performing this jump can be unbelievably difficult and challenging. That's why you'll often find Crash falling into black holes. The game number 4 is Uncharted. Drake's Fortune. The game Uncharted. Drake's Fortune is the first installment of the popular Uncharted franchise, released on November 19, 2007, for the PS3 platform in the action-adventure genre. It immediately captured the attention of many players upon its release and marked the debut of the realistic and significant gaming studio Naughty Dog. There's no doubt that this game has been influential from the start. So much so that many believe the Tomb Raider series was heavily influenced by Uncharted upon its release. However, it's worth noting that the Tomb Raider franchise, or rather the Lara Croft franchise, is older than Uncharted. The first installment of Uncharted is one of Naughty Dog's toughest games. They made every effort to establish the challenging nature of this franchise from the outset, and it's fair to say they succeeded. This game is genuinely difficult. It was so challenging that after the release of the Nathan Drake collection, Naughty Dog added a completely new mode called Explorer, which slightly reduces the game's difficulty and allows players to follow the storyline more easily and quickly. However, it's recommended not to experience this mode. While the game is incredibly engaging and extraordinary in terms of storytelling and character development, we shouldn't forget that one of the most appealing features of Uncharted games is their gameplay and challenges. Embracing the difficulty of Uncharted is essential to have a much better experience throughout playing these titles. Changing the approach to passing a section or level of the game multiple times is one of the joys of experiencing the gameplay of this game. Game number 3 is Jak 3. We've returned to the Jak and Dexter franchise, a series known for its notoriously challenging control system in each installment. The game was released on November 9, 2004, in the platformer and action-adventure genre, and its target platforms to this day include PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation Vita. It must be admitted that Jak 3, compared to Jak 2, was much easier, and Jak 2 might be the toughest part of this franchise. However, Jak 3 remains one of Naughty Dog's toughest games. Almost all elements in this game, while entertaining, are very difficult to control. In the game, you'll have access to 12 different weapons, all of which are remarkably upgradable. However, no matter how much you try to use these weapons to your advantage, you'll realize that even a powerful weapon like the beam reflexor can help you, and some other weapons are also very difficult to control. This has led many to be unable to finish Jak 3. Due to the challenging level designs, many believe that Jak 3 is not a good game and cannot be entertaining. But before you start playing, you should be aware that this game is intended to be excessively challenging. Boss fights in the game are among the other difficult sections of this game that you might not be able to cope with at all. Usually, most boss fights in the world of video games have a specific algorithm for attacking, which even if you fail 100 times, eventually you understand this algorithm and can defeat them. But in Jak 3, these boss fights have no algorithm, and they attack you unexpectedly, making the gaming experience much harder. Some players couldn't even pass the first boss fight of the game. Game number 2 is The Last of Us. Now we've come to the most famous franchise created by Naughty Dog, The Last of Us, a title that even from its initial displays seemed mesmerizing and entirely promised a tough gaming experience. The game was released on June 14, 2013 by Naughty Dog, combining elements of horror, survival, and action-adventure for the PS3 and PS4 platforms. Considering the atmosphere and world depicted in The Last of Us, it was entirely natural for this game to have its own special difficulty. The gameplay of this game showcases unprecedented difficulty from start to finish, and even for old fans of Naughty Dog, this level of difficulty seemed somewhat strange. In this game, you find yourself in a post-apocalyptic world infested with zombies. But the zombies in this game have noticeable differences from other games in the same genre like Resident Evil 4. The zombies in this game rush towards you at a much faster pace, and there are even enemies within the game that are almost impossible to kill in direct combat. Naughty Dog's insistence on stealth gameplay in this game is another reason for the difficulty of this title that cannot be overlooked, especially when in night stages, you have to escape from clickers, which in itself presents a completely separate and different gameplay from the entire game. There's no doubt that the first installment of The Last of Us is one of Naughty Dog's toughest games, which in 2013 managed to attract a lot of attention. The second part of this game, The Last of Us Part 2, also had its own specific difficulty, but the action elements of the game, due to their more pronounced nature, made dealing with enemies easier, and on the other hand, players were almost familiar with the gameplay from the first installment.
I'd count. You see, I believe everything happens for a reason.
We don't have to do this. You know that, right?
After all we've been through, everything that I've done, it can't be for nothing.
Game number 1 is Jak 2. The hardest game developed by Naughty Dog is definitely Jak 2. As mentioned multiple times in this list, the Jak and Daxter franchise was the toughest franchise of this company due to the significant difficulty presented by the control system of this game, making it difficult for us to easily cope with the events of this game world. This game was released on October 14, 2003, in the action-adventure and third-person shooter genre for PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation Vita consoles. Interestingly, many players believe that the only version of this game with easier controls is the handheld console version, namely the PS Vita. Even if you are a fan of very difficult challenges in video games, there is no doubt that during the experience of this game, you will feel that some stages of the game have illogical difficulty. This is why Naughty Dog provides you with different levels of difficulty, where higher difficulty levels can truly annoy you. The boss fights in this game are incredibly tough. Some boss fights are designed in such a way that you simply cannot bypass them, and no matter how hard you try, you will face more failures in this regard. Jak 2 is one of those video games with the lowest completion rates, and many fans of this series, despite always talking about the entertainment of Jak 2, believe that the difficulty of this game was unreasonably high, and Naughty Dog could have had a different approach to this video game. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't joined our channel yet, I would be happy if you subscribed and supported us.
City's on high alert. What the hell did you two do?
Us? Nothing. We've been, sightseeing. Right, Jack?